Good morning to you. It's 9:31, so it is, and it's a lovely morning here in Salford. It's really lovely this morning. Not even chilly, nice and mild after a pretty nice weekend. Bit of rain around yesterday and overnight, but other than that, we can't complain. Hope you've had a good weekend yourself. Hope you're in good form this Monday, as far as you can be on a Monday morning anyway. Going to have a look through the papers now and talk a little bit about the Thomas Cook situation. You know, the travel operator which has been around since the early to mid 19th century and has a very interesting history, the company. It's officially gone bust because the company couldn't do a deal with its creditors and shareholders overnight. So the company's gone bust. And as I speak, television and radio here are full of stories about people overseas, whether they'll be stranded, whether they'll be picked up, whether their atoll insurance covers them, what happens to Thomas Cook staff and that. So we'll talk about that briefly. I won't say much more than I said on Sunday View yesterday on that, but it's a pretty big story, and thousands of people are facing up to the fact that they're going to be out of work, and in this economy and in these times to be told you're out of work, well, it's pretty scary. Many of these people will have children and dependents and bills coming out of their backsides, so it isn't funny. I'll talk very briefly about what should have happened yesterday in a second, and I'll explain why as best as I possibly can. I'm going to say a few brief good mornings. I am aware there's been a bit of criticism over me spending a few minutes saying good morning to everybody on here. I totally understand that. It's not that I don't want to acknowledge you, but it takes up a lot of time. And for people getting the podcast of it, it's pretty boring. I think you'll appreciate that. But good morning to Q in Donegal, to John Roarty, to Breeze the Beautiful, to Netscape Navigator, to Matthew, to Jessica, to Sir Hubert, to Dean Thornby, to Julie, to Matt in Massachusetts, to Gail, to Steve in Australia. How you doing, Steve? To Debbie Steppings. How you doing, Debbie? Who's flown with Air Portugal this year and not with Thomas Cook, and she's glad that she did now. Yeah. Hi to Martin Ellen. How you doing, Martin? To Dick. Hi to Dick. To Paul. To Acker Furmish. To Olan Pierce. To Liz McFall. How you doing, Liz? To Una Monroe. To Condolini. To John Parsons in Salford, whom I had a cup of tea with yesterday. Top man, John. And thanks so much for that lovely present. John went back to Mayo and he brought me back a lovely flat cap. Lovely Irish. I could wear it. I'll wear it tomorrow. I'm going to be wearing it out and about as the temperatures plummet in the northwest. 2-6 Charlie Girl. How you doing, Charlie Girl? Robert Lawrence. Mel Gallagher. Mercy and Golden Age. Triple E's. Mark Gaylard. Retro Game Bloke. Barry Murtaugh. And so on. Scotty Bolton, JW Suicides, Jane Alexander. I'm going to leave it there, right? Okay, you'll appreciate that. Right. What's the BBC saying before we look at the papers about Thomas Cook and what's happened? I don't know if I even did I bring it up there, did I? I'm sure I did. The BBC, you know, as it is the state, well, it is effectively the state media conglomerate. Rescue talks fail, so Thomas Cook has collapsed. 178 years old, last minute negotiations came to nothing, and the UK Civil Aviation Authority said that the tour operator had ceased trading. I think the website's gone down, and I think if you try to go on to the website you'll get a notice there from the administrator. And there's a lot of talk about this being the biggest ever peacetime repatriation, with about 150,000 British holidaymakers waiting for, well, news of how they're going to get home. Peter Frankhauser, Thomas Cook's chief executive, said the firm's collapse was a matter of profound regret. Compulsory liquidation for Thomas Cook. And this guy, Frankhauser, Peter Frankhauser, apologised to the thousands of employees of the company and the millions of customers. That's interesting. It does have millions of customers, millions of returning customers. Very important to keep that in mind. And 9,000 employees in the UK alone, many more employees around the world. So I've been looking into it, and I am going to give you the cliff notes. My critics will say that I'm skirting over things to suit my own narrative or my own, or to suit the opinion, I suppose, that I've arrived at. So I said on the radio show yesterday that the £200 million needed by Thomas Cook not to keep trading, but to park to one side and to use as an insurance policy against the possibility that the coming winter season would be difficult for the company and for the industry. I spoke at length about this on the radio show yesterday and suggested that there wasn't any logical reason why the UK government wouldn't step in and bail out the company. Maybe I didn't expand on it. Maybe in a way that maybe I should have done. What I would have advocated, what I would be advocating now, is that the government steps in and nationalises the company. Now, don't laugh at that. You might not know this, but shortly after the war, the Second World War, Thomas Cook was nationalised. In fact, it was nationalised in 1948, and it stayed in public hands, in public ownership, until 1972, when it was privatised again. In fact, it was doing incredibly well, and it was a pretty, I don't know how you'd say it, it was a robust, it was a money-making, it was a fairly successful state asset until, corrupt politicians decided to sell it off again in 1972. So what I would have advocated yesterday was that the government said, right, we'll take it back into public ownership and we will save those thousands and thousands of jobs. And by doing that, in the UK we're talking about 9,000 people. By doing that, we will save an enormous amount of money. Firstly, we will save the incredible amounts of money that we might have to spend in hiring jumbo jets to take British holidaymakers back from the continent, back home here to the UK, firstly. Secondly, we will save potentially hundreds of millions of pounds in payouts in terms of state benefits to those newly redundant employees. So we will save an enormous amount of money just by spending that 200 million and taking over the company effectively. And what we would do then, as the government, is we would say to the company's creditors, look, hold your horses there. We're aware that the company, which we now own, owes you money, but we'll do a deal with you. We will offset the money that Thomas Cook owes you in future tax breaks and corporation tax breaks going forward until the money you are owed is paid and that debt is satisfied. Now, that isn't wishful thinking. That's not communism. It's not Marxism. It's not anti-capitalism. It's just common sense. Particularly because the company has millions, and that's no exaggeration, millions of loyal returning customers because the company has a great reputation. Anybody who uses the Witch Guide, anybody who reads the UK national newspapers will know the company's always had a very good reputation in terms of how it treats its customers. So it has millions of customers. So it was, to use these American colloquialisms, no-brainer or a slam dunk for the government to step in and say, right, we'll basically take over the company. The company's in the difficulties it's in partly because of over-expansion in the mid-2000s, acquiring other companies that weren't stable companies and companies that had debt attached to them when purchased by the Thomas Cook Group. Look, I could be here all day talking about that, but again, you have thousands and thousands of employees. Jobs are gone because of the bad management, wretchedly bad management of a tiny few people. So the government should have stepped in. I won't repeat myself. I've given the reasons why. The reasons I've given are unimpeachable, by the way. They are unimpeachable. As well as the very poor management decisions, the bad acquisitions made by the company. It was hit by an unusually hot summer last year here in the UK, which we get once every 10 or 20 years. 20 years we get we get a heat wave. A lot of people stay at home. The whole staycation thing, this didn't do it any good whatsoever. But the company is a company that could easily be turned around very quickly if it got some relief, and thousands of employees wouldn't be made redundant. And it could become an asset again for the Treasury, making money that could be used to spend on various programs, education, health, and so on. So it's disgusting. My great friend and colleague Jean Ann, whom I mention very often, maybe I mention her too often, maybe, great friend, great help to me, mentioned yesterday, I wonder about this whole thing, the timing of it, and climate protests, and calls for people not to travel as much. And Jean Ann is far from, a crazy conspiracy theorist. A very smart woman, very much of a deep thinker. I don't know. 22,000 jobs in total at risk worldwide. 9,000 in the UK, gone. Didn't need to happen. The government could have said, well, we'll have that. That's a good company, that, with a good future. It's a great company with a great brand name. Trusted company, great British company, we'll buy it. But of course, European Union state aid rules actually, let's be honest about it, forbid the UK from stepping in and saying, well, we'll rescue you. So there you are. It's shocking. But what I've told you is true. It's unimpeachable. Right? Simple as that. That company is not a company that's, dead and finished and market forces have pushed it to one side or it's back in the Stone Age. No. Again, very bad management decisions. Acquisitions that were totally unnecessary and highly risky. And then compounded by a couple of very difficult seasons have led to the situation the company's in now. But it could be rescued like that and turned around again with no significant loss of jobs. And you'd save, well, in the short term, you'd save hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. And in the long term, you would have an asset for the state. An asset that used to be owned by the state, by the way. Was owned by the state for 24 years. Making a lot of money. Before some filthy, dirty, rotten, cretinous, manky, fucking whoring politicians decided to sell it back to the private sector. Right? Take it back. Nothing communist about that. Nothing Marxist about it. That's socialism. That's real socialism. I know I've said that 1,000 times. Look, we'll leave that alone, right? I'm genuinely distressed. I really am, for people losing their jobs this morning. And nobody giving a shit about it, really. Selfish people screaming about, oh, I booked my holiday. These fucking selfish people. Yeah, look, I understand you booked your holiday. All right, it's bad luck. You might be protected by the insurance company, by the insurance, the industry regulator at all. You might not be. But thousands of people are out of work. And your government is being shown up again for what it is. And it's a perfect analogy of how this country isn't a sovereign country, cannot, because its hands are tied, step in as it couldn't do with Tata Steel and everything else. I could be here all day talking about it because European Union state aid rules prevent it from doing so. And I know you might say, and you would be right to say it, that the UK was among the biggest cheerleaders of European Union state aid rules. Yes, the UK was. But what does that mean? Does that mean I'm wrong? Of course, this country has its politicians, European Union politicians, long before the referendum. Politicians working to cede more and more and more power to Brussels, who went along with European Union state aid rules. Of course, I'm not saying that our politicians were in the dark at the time. We're talking about deeply corrupt politicians who worked morning, noon and night to transfer power from this country into the hands of the European Union. So again, I'm going to leave that alone and I'm going to go straight into the papers. But you won't find a credible argument anywhere today against what I said about what the government should have done yesterday, which was stepped in and said, we'll have that company, thank you very much. Nobody will make a credible argument against it. Nobody. I challenge any man or woman to come on my radio programme and tell me why that wouldn't work. Of course it would work. Anyway, Not many of the papers have it today because this happened in the small hours of the morning. The Labour Party conference is going on in Brighton. There's Jeremy Corbyn. The iPaper says there's a civil war on over Brexit. What else? Because the party and his shadow front bench, Emily Thornberry, Keir Starmer, Diane Abbott, very much now in the camp of Labour must be the Remain party during the campaigning ahead of the next general election. But Jeremy Corbyn, this moron, this cretinous, gelatinous, I'm not going to swear today again. This guy is saying, well, let's win the general election, then let's have a referendum, and in that referendum I will remain neutral. Number of papers are saying his position now as leader of the Labour Party is in serious jeopardy. And I'll tell you why the newspapers for once are right. And it is because the wider membership across the UK, the men and women who believed in Catweasel there when he stood for the leadership, which was a complete accident, by the way, or was it? Right? He was dragged into the contest, you remember? By some of the participants. Liz Kendall, was it? Was it Liz Kendall who dragged him in and said, oh, we need to have somebody from the hard left just to make it a contest where everybody's represented? And all over the country, in working class, and I'm a proud working class lad, in working class communities, which have been destroyed by austerity, destroyed by immigration. They went out and they voted for him, and they were thrilled. They thought, we have one of ours now. This is it now. This is fantastic. This guy speaks for us, speaks out on all these issues. He's a working man, anti-European Union all his entire life. This guy speaks out for us. That support is gone now. Spoke to a friend about it yesterday. A friend who thought I was very wrong to not support the election of Jeremy Corbyn to the leadership of the Labour Party. And he said to me, I now understand what you were saying at the time. So yes, this guy's position as leader of the Labour Party might be in very serious jeopardy now, but does it matter? Do you finally understand, those of you who called me names and mocked me and trolled me and sent me hateful emails, some of you threatening to kill me back in the day because you believed that I was a socialist and yet I couldn't support him, and you were like, well, what's going on? Do you understand now where I was coming from 3 years ago? Do you? You must do. I don't want any apologies. Do not apologise for having an opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Don't apologise to me, but have the fucking courage and the fortitude to now understand that you are fucked if you think you can ever change your life, your lives, or the lives of the people around you by supporting a political party. This guy is worse than David Cameron and George Osborne. He's worse. They never claimed to be anything they weren't. So yeah, it's absolutely staggering to me that the far left, what I call internet press, the nonsense, mainstream light, so-called independent media, the canary and all that crap, propping this guy up as some sort of messiah. There's never been a bigger sellout in human history. And I have to say, and I said it yesterday, what do the UK intelligence agencies have on him? Going back years. When he might have been considered an enemy of the state when he was meeting with Republican politicians, when he was meeting with the resistance to the racist apartheid state of Israel, when he might have been considered an enemy of the state by some people. What sort of intelligence did they gather on Jeremy? What were or are his sexual proclivities? His business dealings? This is how they do it, you see. Jeremy Corbyn in the iPaper. It's terribly depressing stuff on a Monday morning when normally I'm making you laugh by joking about some of this stuff. There's nothing to joke about here. There isn't a triumphalist tone in my voice. There isn't. You have to see this now, you have to wake up to it. Or just fuck off. And go and annoy somebody else, because I can't be arsed anymore explaining it to you, to be honest. Labour will be crushed over Brexit, Corbyn told. Yeah. Doesn't matter. The Guardian, probably more Corbyn stuff. Yeah, revolt over Brexit policy throws Labour into chaos. You see, the Blairites within the Labour Party couldn't do anything about Corbyn. They will now be able to do what they want to do with Corbyn. Corbyn is finished now. But they wouldn't be in a position to do anything about him if Corbyn had remained true to the principles that he apparently had, the beliefs when he was a backbencher. Because it was those principles that led to hundreds of thousands of people voting for him and tens of thousands more joining the Labour Party. So if Corbyn held true to the values, the core values that he assigned to himself in his backbench days, well, the Thornburys and Tom Watson and these people and the other ankle biters on the backbenches, like Yvette Cooper, mass murderers, they couldn't do anything about him. But Corbyn has lost the people now, you see. I told you I met a guy called Tom, Man City supporter, in supermarket locally on Saturday morning, came up, tapped me on the shoulder. Nice to meet you, Richie. I listened to the process. I love it. I don't get, doesn't happen to me very often. Lovely, Tom. Let's have a chat. You're right, Richie, he said. It's terribly depressing. And he said, where I come from, just around the corner, a lot of Labour people, they're not going to vote in the next election. I said, they're not even going to vote Tory. He said, no, they're not going to vote. They understand it, what Corbyn has done to them. You see? So now they can do what they want to him. The Blairites in the party. Marvellous. Lovely stuff. The Metro, Labour rift on Brexit grows. Yeah. Not going to get excited this morning. Financial Times, Thomas Cook story. Administration looms. The paper went to bed. The paper went to bed late last night before the talks ended. And the receiver said, right, I'm in. The Sun, 40 jumbos to the rescue. Thomas Cook, obviously. The Mail, 165,000 face fortnight of Thomas Cook chaos. No need for it, of course. The government could have said, listen, we'll find the 200 million. What are the creditors going to do to the government? I don't mean that you tell the creditors. That's not how you do things. That's not socialism. You don't tell the creditors, fuck you. You don't do that. That's wrong. You say to the creditors, right, look, you're owed money, but this company's going to make loads of money, right? Because it's in a bit of a downturn, but it's not dead. So we'll give you some tax breaks. That's what we'll do. In the meantime, we'll sort it out. We'll get this company back on its feet again. That's all you have to do, the government. It's all it had to do. Take it back into public ownership, get it making money for the states. The Times, this came out of the Labour conference. Independent schools will be abolished by Labour. Do you agree with that, Richie? No. No. That's not socialism. Telling private schools, which were set up by people using their own money, I don't like them. I don't like the things. Right? I don't like private schools. I don't like Eton and what goes on there and the sort of people that come out of there and end up in politics. No. But that's not socialism. We'll seize your assets and your land. It's not socialism. Right? I'm not getting into it. Just don't start on me. The venture capitalists, the anarcho-capitalists amongst you. Right? I don't agree with that. Or anything like it. Work on education by all means. Stop teaching children about sex and fucking gender. Stop telling them what to think about things. Get them interacting with one another. Get them playing together. Teach them how to read and how to write. Teach them a foreign language. Make it a fun place to be. Make teachers' jobs easier. Stop all this fucking mandatory testing of 4-year-olds. Jesus Christ. They're nightmare institutions now, England schools. Stop it. Get back to the way it used to be. Let the private schools do whatever they want. Madness, this coming out of the Labour conference. And people saying, fucking socialists again. I want to kill people when I hear this. You know, metaphorically. It's not socialism to say to somebody, I'll take your buildings, I'll take your land, fuck you, I'll just do that. That's not socialism. That's tyranny, is what that is. That was my David Brent moment there. That's tyranny. That's tyranny. It is tyranny. Labour pledged to veterans justice for nuclear test victims. That's an interesting story in the Mirror. Might get into that later on, maybe, I don't know, if I have time. The Express benefits bill to hit 520 billion under Labour. Yeah. And the Star, Jeremy, what's his name? Clarkson, is it? Is getting attacked by seagulls. On his farm, apparently. I bet you a lot of snowflakes can't believe that Jeremy Clarkson has a farm. He has a farm. He grows diesel engines. He grows diesel engines under the ground. Or he buries them on his farm. Jeremy Clarkson there, yeah. So that's the papers. And that's Thomas Cook. Any dissenters there on my Thomas Cook plan? No. Evading Grid says, talk about peers, Corbyn. For what? What do you want me to talk about peers for? Hi to Keith Skegwin, to ID Jeffrey. If the public can raise hundreds of millions of pounds for comic relief and the likes, they could save this institution. This is a political move and nothing more, says ID Jeffrey. You might very well be right. Yeah. Lots of comments on that. Oh yeah, we covertly send hundreds of millions of pounds, covertly. Not to mention officially. We send lots of money officially in state aid. Do you know about state aid? I've told you about it on the radio show many times. State aid. Which the public in the UK think that state aid is a lovely thing. It's a benevolent thing where we send money to developing economies to help them build schools and to improve infrastructure and utilities and to improve the lives of children. That's not how it works. State aid is given to developing countries with caveats attached. The aid usually is spent on medicines and vaccines produced by the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Oh, you're cynical this morning, Alan. No, I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth and nothing but the truth. That's how it works. So we could stop doing that and we could give that money to Thomas Cook, but not to the directors, the lousy bastards who expanded and took on companies that were risky at best, playing with the livelihoods of 22 to 30,000 people. No, fuck off. You fucked the company, you're gone. We'll take it back into public ownership. That's what we'll do. And we'll run it properly. Because it's a great name. Great British name. That's what we should have done. But no. There you are. Breeze says Diane Abbott's children privately educated. Yes! And Shami Chakrabarti. Fucking hell. You're not supposed to be angry. You're not supposed to hate. And I don't hate anybody. But the likes of Shami Chakrabarti, they get me pretty close to hatred, you know. This shadow Attorney General, this fucker, who rails about social injustice, bangs on about it. SJW sent her own children to £12,000 a year schools. Of course, they're hypocrites. They're not socialists. Do I have to tell you again? Salvador Allende is a socialist. Nicolas Maduro is a socialist. Hugo Chavez is a socialist. What else is in the papers? By the way, lest I forget, trigger warning. Those lunatics. Those funny lunatics. Graham Booth and Hayden Hewitt. They're having an event on November 2nd in Manchester. It's called Trigger Warning Meet Space, the first free speech event of its kind, taking place at TW Studios, November 2nd. You can find out all about it at triggerwarning.tv. There's a Gear Press address, website, where you go to find out about tickets. But to get to that, the best thing to do is to go to triggerwarning.tv and find out about it. It's a Saturday night from 7 o'clock, November 2nd. Audience space is limited, and they invited me to come along. They were very kind to do that, where we'll be discussing various things. And it's not a case of you just sitting there and watching us because we're nobody of any importance. You'll be participating and joining in and having your own say. So there you are. Okay? Triggerwarning.tv if you want to find out more about that. Triggerwarning.tv. Graham Booth, Hayden Hewitt, in the flesh, with guests and with your participation talking about free speech. That is the theme of the evening, free speech, which I don't think, I think nothing is more important than that right now. So big up to them, and I look forward to attending that November 2nd. November 2nd. A lot of stuff about climate change. Now, I've interviewed this chap, and I do like him. He's going to be speaking today about ecocide and eating meat, because the United Nations has told him that meat producers are the biggest culprits when it comes to environmental damage and contributing to climate change. And Michael Mansfield, who's approaching his octogenarian years, looks well for it, doesn't he, Michael? Very, very sharp legal mind, Michael Mansfield. And he believes that eating meat is a crime against humanity. Somewhere in Los Angeles, Morrissey is having an orgasm, I reckon, right about now. So meat could become illegal because it is so bad for the environment. Moneybags Mansfield, he's known as, because he's made a lot of money from his high-profile cases. Good luck to him. Good luck to him. Making money doesn't make you evil, you know. Again. You know, it doesn't. I'm not against people making money, using their skills and their ability to make money. Their ingenuity to dream up an idea, to gather people around them, to employ them and to make money, and then to use that money to build mansions and drive big cars. I'm not against that. No socialist in the world is against that. Well, I tell you what I'm against. I'm against venture capitalists who bend, twist and break the law, aided by corrupt governments and NGOs, to steal resources that should be in public hands and to use those resources to enrich themselves while continuing to twist, bend and break the fucking law. That's what I'm against, but not against people doing well for themselves. Right? Do we understand now? We do? All right. So Michael Mansfield anyway, yeah, there you are, Michael. I'm not going to give him too much shite today. Here he is. We know the top 3,000 companies in the world are responsible for more than $1.5 trillion worth of damage to the environment, with meat and dairy production high on the list. We know that because the UN told us so. The United Nations, they did it. Oh well, Jesus, who am I to argue? It's everywhere today. The United Nations, everywhere today. Everywhere today. Get off. Carbon taxes. Carbon taxes. This fucking idiot here, look at him. The Merry Indian. This is the RTE website, rte.ie, Radio Telefisheren.ie, rte.ie. Leo is off to the United Nations as well, and he's going to tell them that the Irish are going to increase carbon taxes and we'll ring fence the revenue. And we'll use that revenue, well, to spend on renewables, and we will use that revenue to tackle climate change, carbon taxes. People should be genuinely terrified of this. This is no joke, right? That's in the Irish National Broadcaster website today. It's on the website, inside. Leo, yeah. There he is, Leo. Leo likes to act like Leo's in control, you know. And these are his ideas. These are his government's initiatives. Of course they are. Madness. The implications for us, for people on planet Earth are, well, this is in the wake of this mad weekend where you had children telling people that they're coming for them. I'm not making that up, by the way. Children telling people on social media and on stages in front of tens of thousands of people that we're coming for you. It's like Children of the fucking Corn. It's like a Stephen King short story coming to fruition. I'm fucking serious, right? We're coming for you. You have children telling people you're right to be scared of us. Jesus wept, huh? It's in the Irish Times as well, Leo. Look at it. Look at the pictures, look. Ring fencing carbon tax revenues for climate action will increase carbon tax revenue from 20% to 80% per cubic ton or metric ton or whatever the fuck of CO2 emitted, right? We're going to screw businesses, basically. We're going to destroy business. Can't believe a socialist is saying that, can you? But again, socialists don't want to destroy businesses. Businesses employ people. All we want to do is make sure those people are looked after. But we can't do that anymore because the unions have been infiltrated, weakened and fucking destroyed. So we can't even do that these days. So yeah, it's all kicking off. Today, a bunch of mothers are heading to Downing Street with their babies in prams like this. Demanding action as well. Everybody's getting in on the act because if you do, there's a good chance you'll be famous. There's a good chance your tweets will be amplified. There's a good chance you'll get on the evening news. Everybody's jumping in. It's cool. It's sexy. It is chic now to join in with this lunacy. Mothers are rising up. A fast-growing movement of mums worried about climate change crisis are going to Downing Street today and to the Shell headquarters with their prams, demanding action. Yep. Brilliant. Fucking great. But you see, there's a really sad fact of life that nobody wants to talk about. Mentioned this on Sunday View yesterday because I talked about it extensively. Talked about it extensively yesterday. None of these children, the prominent ones, Jean, whatever her name is, in Australia, and Greta, Malachi and fucking Isaac from Children of the Corn, right? None of them are being asked, why do you feel so strongly about it? What's really going on? What about the science? Because the media, as I've told you many times on the radio show, has now decided the argument is over. The atmosphere is made up of nitrogen and oxygen. You knew that, didn't you? And other gases, helium, you can see, methane, and of course ozone, which our deodorants apparently caused a big hole in at one time. More bullshit, by the way. Okay, we don't talk about that too often. That bullshit ozone hole story, which is a complete fabrication as well. So what you have is you have an atmosphere that's made up of 0.037%, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and then carbon is 0.037%. And wait for it. We contribute, try and get your heads around this now, to the 0.037%, we make up 4% of that. Yeah, our activity contributes 4% to the 0.037%. Put simply, trying to discover how much carbon dioxide we are putting into the atmosphere is like trying to find a needle in a 300 feet high, 400 feet wide fucking haystack. Didn't Piers Corbyn, now that I've been asked to mention him, didn't he say on talk radio recently, speaking to Mike Graham, that termites put out more than 10 times the carbon that human beings do? And that's true, by the way. Why aren't we having a war on termites? Why aren't we going out there with our fucking shovels and our garden hose to find the termites? Termites are not in gardens, are they? They're in trees, are they? Well, why aren't we going to where the termites are and flamethrowing them to death? It's a massive, massive, massive lie. The greatest hoax in human history. That man's activity is driving the planet, not the species on the planet, but the planet itself to the brink of extinction. It is a massive lie. There is no basis in reality for this claim that in the next few years we're going to go past the point of no return. And climates are going to keep changing. The weather is going to get worse and worse and worse. People will have no water. People will have too much water. People will have no water. Droughts. Lies. Lies. These are the facts. That is exactly how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. And let me tell you, there were times, thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution, when there was far more CO2 in our atmosphere than there is now. For any number of reasons. Most of the CO2 that's up there is volcanic eruptions. Plant life. Not plant life, excuse me. Volcanoes, of course, make up a huge amount of it. Of course, it's sequestered in the oceans and in the rocks, as the great geologist Ian Plimer said. Anyway, but we're contributing 4% to the overall 0.037%. And we have children threatening us. We have governments threatening to transform the way we exist, the way we live, the way we go about our lives on this planet in ways that would have been unimaginable to our grandparents in terms of restriction on where you can go, what you can do, what you can eat, what you can say. It's amazing to me. But you have the mums. Mum's on the rise going to Downing Street today. That's all right. That's all that matters. Going to leave you with this. Saw this yesterday. Bit mad this. But very serious. This is in the Mail on Sunday. Let me just bring it up here. Excuse me. It's in the Mail on Sunday. And I think I might have put this offline, so just bear with me a minute and I'll bring it up. There you are. So children as young as 6 are being taught, this isn't hysteria, by the way, this is true, are being taught about touching or stimulating their own genitals as part of classes that will become compulsory in hundreds of schools, primary schools. Some parents believe the lessons, part of a controversial new sex and relationships teaching program called All About Me, it's a great name for it, isn't it, are sexualising their young children. So a lot of people are taking their children out of school. This is true. You'll be hearing a lot about this on the news this week. The news cycle will gravitate this week towards more religiously observant parents are taking their children out of schools to avoid this. This is true. It's going to be a huge thing, this. One couple told how they were so disturbed they withdrew their sons from lessons at a school where the program's already being taught. It's been rolled out across 241 primaries by Warwickshire County Council and could be adopted by other local authorities next year. There's no could be about it. Will be. Will be. Here you are. Politicians who had supported it, expressing concern. David Davies, of course, former Brexit secretary. Is it? David Davis. There's another David Davies, isn't there? Could be another guy. I and many other parents would be furious at completely inappropriate sexual matters being taught to children as young as 6. These classes go way beyond the guidance the government is producing and are effectively sexualising very young children. It's very important. They go beyond the guidelines. Why? Why and how? How has it come to be that it goes beyond the guidelines? Who's behind it? Under a section called Touching Myself. See it there? Teachers are advised to tell children that lots of people like to tickle or stroke themselves as it might feel nice. They are also instructed to inform youngsters this may include touching their private parts, and that while some people may say this behaviour is dirty, it is in fact very normal. Speaking like this to 6-year-olds. There's a bit more. However, the youngsters are warned it's not polite to touch themselves in public. It is an activity they should do when alone, in the bath, shower or in bed. In the same lesson, children are given scenarios which they must judge to be okay or not okay. Imagine that. Asking 6-year-olds, is it okay to play with your willy? Is it okay to play with your... What the fuck? Did they say vagina to 6-year-old girls? Is it okay to do it here? Is it not okay to do it here? In one lesson, pupils are told that when a girl called Autumn has a bath and is alone, she likes to touch herself between her legs. It feels nice. At this point, teachers are advised to remind the students of the rules about self-stimulation. The guidance on touching is repeated. It goes on to say, let me just, if I can bring it up. Can I bring it up? No. The guidance on stimulation, on touching, is repeated in lesson plans for years 4 and 5 involving pupils aged 8 to 10. It's repeated. As they get older, it's repeated. Yeah. Right. I'll see you today at 5 o'clock UK time. Until then, have a good Monday. Tiffany Fitzhenry will join me at 5. I'm looking forward to that. I'll speak to you later. Bye for now.